Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to AITAREYA Institute and our daily current affairs sessions. I am Aditya Singh. So current affairs, as we have already told you, so current affairs are not just about knowing what happened. They are also about understanding why it happened, how it impacts India and the world, and what civil services can ask from it. So in this session, we'll decode the day's most important development with complete prelims fact, along with mains analysis and our answer writing perspectives will be provided. So let's get started with today's discussion. So first news that we have in news is around the Korku community. Okay, Korku community. So the question should be, who are they? Where do they live, and what are any, if they do have any key characteristics that you can remember. So first question is, who are they? So they are an ancient, primarily rural-based, peaceful Adivasi ethnic group classified as a scheduled tribe. So first and foremost thing that you need to remember is that they are a scheduled tribe. So they are actually a Munda ethnic group. Okay, a Munda ethnic group geographically close to the Dravidian speaking Gond tribe. Okay, so this you have to remember, that first and foremost thing, that obviously they are a scheduled tribe and these are a Munda ethnic group, and geographically they are close to Dravidian speaking Gond tribe. Because this is the first fact that you have to remember. Context if we provide, so around what happened, what was in news, around 2000 members from around 150 villages in Khandwa and Burhanpur. And these two districts are in Madhya Pradesh, MP. They staged a protest march over the forest encroachments that were happening in their regions. So in order to stop that forest encroachments, they were protesting it. Simple. Okay. You don't need to remember this, but you can use this context. If let's say you can use this context in the introduction part in your mains answers. Beyond this, you don't need to remember the context as such. Habitat, so this is particularly concentrated in Khandwa, Burhanpur, Betul, Chhindwara. All of this is associated with Madhya Pradesh. Okay, so these are the region, and they are also found in Melghat Tiger Reserve area. ठीक है, Melghat Tiger Reserve area. This is in Maharashtra. So apart from certain districts, the southernmost districts of Madhya Pradesh, it is also found in Melghat Tiger Reserve, which is in Maharashtra. So this is also you can remember around Melghat Tiger Reserve area. Okay, very important. You have to remember this. First of all, where is Melghat Tiger Reserve? So you must know this, that this is in Maharashtra. Talking about the history, originally, obviously, they were hunter-gatherers. Okay? So they were initially hunter-gatherers in dense Satpura mountain range. And they were found in dense Satpura mountain range forest along the river Tapti. Tapti or Tapi. And for I hope you must be well aware of the river Tapti, that it flows from east to west. Just like Narmada, Tapti flows from east to west. Okay, and it is located on the southern side of the Satpura range. Okay, and why does this happen? Most of the peninsular rivers flow from west to east. However, two major rivers, which are Narmada and Tapti, they flow from east to west. And why is this? Because they are flowing in a rift valley. Okay, so the reason I've also provided, and you have to remember this. So transitioned over centuries to settled agriculture. Now they are doing settled agriculture. Earlier they were hunter-gatherers, like most of the tribe. Language, they speak Korku language, and that is why the name Korku community. So Korku, what is Korku? It is an endangered Austroasiatic Munda language written in Devanagari script. So this is the third thing on which a question could be asked. Agriculture practice seasonal double cropping of cereals, pulses, oil seeds. Those in Ben's Dehi pioneered local potato and coffee cultivation. Okay, so these are the points around agriculture. All in all, main three things you have to remember. One is it belongs to Munda ethnic group. Okay, and talking about the language, it is an endangered language, and it is Austroasiatic Munda language, which is written in Devanagari script. And the where are they found? So you have to remember in the southern and the districts of Madhya Pradesh and the northern districts of Maharashtra, which comprises mainly of your Melghat Tiger Reserve. Okay, so this is very important. Korku tribe and Burhanpur, Khandwa, Betul, Chhindwara, and adjoining areas of Melghat Tiger Reserve. So this point was asked once in your prelims. Prelims, this was the fact that was asked around the habitat. Okay, that was one question that was asked around the habitat as to where the Korku tribes are found. Second thing, this one thing which is not mentioned here but has been asked in your prelims, they celebrate a month long. They celebrate a month long planting campaign festival coinciding with the traditional festival of Hari Jiroti. ठीक है? So they celebrate a month-long planting campaign festival, which coinciding with the traditional festivals of Hari Jiroti. So this was once asked in your prelims. Okay. So I hope this is absolutely clear. Moving forward, Korku community. Korku community governance part, the culture part, and its significance. So if we talk about the governance and the social structure. So traditional governance, if we talk about, then village affairs are managed by a Korku Panchayat. Now, this Korku Panchayat is headed by a Patel and assisted by Patidar, Kotwar, or the respected elders. Okay. Social sets, there are four major subsets and 16 Gotras, often named after natural elements. And, and they regulate, all this regulates their marriage alliances. Next is architecture. So if we talk about their villages, so villages comprises of thatched huts. Okay, see these are having thatched huts with raised wooden platforms for storing harvest and cattle feed. So this is the kind of architecture that you have. So villages of thatched huts with wooden platforms. Reason for storing the harvest. So this aspect you can read about it. It is highly unlikely that any question would be framed on this. Just read it. Okay, I'm telling you what are the key components that could be asked, that has been asked and that could be asked, and what are the aspects that you just merely need to read upon. Okay. Next, talking about the cultural significance. So if we talk about community cultural significance, then first aspect is community conservation. So during the festival that we talked about, Hari and Jitori or Jiroti festival, Korkus undertake community tree planting to combat environmental degradation as well as strengthening the food security. Okay, so this is an important fact and this has been asked in your prelims. Okay. Next, forest dependence depend on mahua, chironji, tendu leaves, and medicinal plants. Also, all of this is non-timber forest produce, which could be sold easily by the tribals. I mean, not easily. I mean, they can use these things. Okay. Then the next step that comes with regards to these products is the marketing aspect. Now, this is where the main challenge lies. Okay, so demanding an end to illegal forest clearance and protection of their grazing lands. Land disputes. So growing land pressures have intensified the conflicts, leading to demands for stronger boundary protection. And JFM institutions, very, very important. JFM is Joint Forest Management. Okay, JFM. So Joint Forest Management, even so, whenever you are writing your means, try to include this point in your answers. Focus on joint forest management, where not only the forest authorities, along with the forest authorities, the local people living over there are also working in order to conserve the forest together. So this is how they would be effectively able to manage and regulate any events, any incidences of forest clearance. Okay, and any encroachment action would also be reduced. So without the involvement of local community, the local people, you cannot have an anti-encroachment action. So in order for you to have an anti-encroachment action, you need to include local people. In order to conserve the forest of that region, you need to include the local people of that region. Next news article is, one second. So next news article is cyclosporiasis. So the question could be, what are the causative agent? How does it transmit itself? And what are the key features? So these are the three basic things which could be asked around this cyclosporiasis. So first of all, what it is? It is a food-borne illness. Okay, it's a food-borne illness caused by this, you don't need to remember this, Cyclospora catenacensis. It's a microscopic single-celled parasite. It's a single-celled parasite targeting the human digestive system. So the target is human digestive system, causing prolonged intestinal distress. Context: US CDC issued a major advisory after a massive outbreak across 34 states. Okay. So transmission is through fecal oral route. है ना? Through fecal oral route. What do you mean by fecal oral route? By consuming food, contaminated food or contaminated water, which is contaminated with fecal matter. But no direct person-to-person spread, as the parasite must mature in the environment first. So this you can remember, no person-to-person contact, okay? And it transmits through fecal oral route, okay? So what do you need to remember around this? One is it's a foodborne illness associated with a single-celled parasite which is targeting the human digestive system. Okay. Second thing here, that it is transmitted through fecal oral route, but no direct person-to-person spread. Okay. The reason is also mentioned. So two things you have to remember: common sources, your contaminated fresh produce, your leafy greens, basil, cilantro, raspberries, all these things. And seasonal pattern, so it peaks during spring and summer in the US, which is typically around May and August. You don't need to remember this. Diagnosis: what is the difficulty in diagnosing it? It requires a specific stool PCR or microscopy. Parasite shed, because parasites shed intermittently. So it requires multiple samples. So your sampling, your diagnosis cannot happen just in one or two. It requires multiple samples. Disinfectant resistant. Okay, so it is disinfectant resistant. Okay, so you have standard vegetable washes will not eliminate. So if you believe that if you simply wash the vegetable it will go away, so this is not happening in this case, because it is disinfectant resistant. So still I would say this, all these things you can read about this, but these 2 points you must remember, that it is a food-borne illness from a single-celled parasite which is targeting the human digestive system, and second is it is transmitted through fecal oral route. Okay. Symptoms: frequent prolonged watery diarrhea. So only this you can remember, that this is watery diarrhea beginning 1 week after the exposure. Also you have loss of appetite, stomach cramps, bloating, fatigue, nausea, multiple set of symptoms are present. but only remember that watery diarrhea. Vulnerable groups, as obvious, the vulnerable groups are the children, elderly, and all those individuals whose immunity system is a bit compromised. All those people will face, prolonged illness and even a relapse. You know, so after a particular point of time, the disease will go away, but then it will come back, and that is the relapse, and particularly dangerous when proper treatment is delayed. So you need to have an earlier treatment. Potential complications, severe dehydration you'll witness, nutrient absorption in the body. Now that becomes a major issue. And your gallbladder will get inflamed. Okay. And reactive arthritis may occur in severe or untreated cases. So these are certain potential implications. Treatment, 7-day course of trimethoprim sulfomethoxazole, okay, TMP SMX. So immunocompromised patients require longer treatment. Okay, adequate water and electrolyte rehydration is essential. Why? Because you are having a diarrhea kind of thing. Okay, so all in all, in this, you need to remember that watery diarrhea, and that is it. And maybe you can also remember this gallbladder inflammation, and that is precisely it. Next is mobile phone manufacturing scheme. So government of the day is focusing excessively on MPMS, mobile phone manufacturing. So a dedicated scheme has been launched by the government of India. So what is it? A macro level manufacturing incentive policy. It is an incentive policy for mobile phone. For mobile phone production, localized component sourcing. Why are we focusing on localized component sourcing and even design engineering, localized design and engineering? Because we are targeting to make the entire product indigenous. Indigenous. Under which initiative? Make in India. And we want to promote Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative. Okay? So why are we doing all this? Because we need to reduce our dependency on China. So this is China, obviously other nations also, but particularly China, because we have a massive debt with China, and it gets reflected during our trade with China. So our balance of a balance of payment with China is generally negative. India is indebted to China a huge amount of forex reserves. India is on deficit. Okay, more than $100 billion of deficit is present with China, and this is why one of the important thing is your mobile phones. A lot of mobile phone manufacturing, the hub is China, and this is what we are trying to replace. So it's a new cornerstone for India's high-tech electronics infrastructure. A high amount of budget has been prioritized for this scheme for FY27 to FY31, and a 5 year, how much? 62,500 crores. So this amount in UPSC won't be asked. This amount is generally asked in your state civil services exams. Okay, so if you are appearing for any state civil services exam, then you need to remember this amount, 62,500 crores. In UPSC, generally not asked this kind of figures. Base incentive. So since I talked about that, it's an incentive policy. So what kind of incentives are provided in this scheme? So differentiated financial incentives on certain eligible product sales at ranging from 25% to 5% over the tenure. Okay, you don't need to remember these facts. Component source linkages. Additional up to 1.5% incentive will be provided if you are sourcing your components locally. So domestic sourcing of key components and sub-assemblies. If you are sourcing the components from the local region, then additional incentive will be provided to that firm. R&D incentive, extra 3% incentive on eligible sales, dedicated for designing engineering and research and development. The entire idea is to encourage the indigenous brand development. Again, the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative, okay, Make in India. Targets, what are the targets? So this domestic mobile phone production of 39 lakh crore approximately will generate 60,000 direct jobs, and a lot of lakhs of indirect jobs will be generated across the manufacturing nodes. Okay, so in this thing, what you need to remember is that it is an incentive based policy. What is the purpose? And second thing is that the amount of budget, it is the amount of budget that has been allocated, and that could be as in your state civil services. The rest of the things you can use it in your mains, how the incentives are also provided for domestic sourcing of the components and research and development. Okay, obviously, this is an obvious point that a huge amount of direct as well as indirect jobs will be created. Okay. Next news article is Semicon 2.0. Semicon 2.0, India's semiconductor mission. And India's semiconductor mission. So a cabinet has approved the Semicon 2.0. So first of all, what is Semicon 2.0? It is a comprehensive national policy framework under the which mission? India Semiconductor Mission. India Semiconductor Mission, transitioning India from basic chip assembly to complete self-reliance in advanced fabrication, okay, in advanced fab, okay, and tool chain design and raw material processing. So all in all, you need to remember this. What India is doing presently, India is doing is assembling, you know. So the rather than make in India, it has become assemble in India. So from assemble in India, we need to transition towards make in India. And this is where the Semicon 2.0 becomes very important. So budget, huge amount of budget, 1,27,500 crore dedicated government outlay has been associated with it. So what are the pillars? There are six pillars. First pillar is design ecosystem. In semiconductor, design aspect is very important. So that is why even government, not only in this, in general also, design linked incentives are provided by the government. Okay, just like you have your PLI scheme, production linked incentive. Similarly, you also have design linked incentive. So an entire design ecosystem will be created, which will be building proprietary chip design IPs. What are IPs, by the way? These are intellectual properties. This is intellectual property, and in design, such kind of thing becomes very important. The intellectual property. Okay, so building a proprietary chip design IPs, commercial system blocks, and unique architectures building on the 105 existing chip design startups. So first and foremost thing that you need to remember is design ecosystem is focused upon. Second pillar is machines and material. So incentives, again here the term incentives. Incentives are provided for domestic manufacturing of the heavy machinery, your precision tools, your specialized chemicals, and high purity gases for the semiconductor fabs, the fabrication units. Third pillar is global fabs. India's first commercial silicon fab is scheduled for 2028. Okay, you need to remember. Fourth to sixth pillar, the focus is on ATMP, OSAT packaging, talent development, building 68,000 students trained across 315 universities using EDA tools. So Semicon 2.0 secures the defense, satellites, telecom, and even critical infrastructure by reducing the dependency on foreign semiconductor supply chain, and particularly foreign. Whenever we are talking about foreign, so we are focusing more on Taiwan. Okay, so in this news article, what you need to remember is first of all the what is this mission, India's semiconductor mission. Okay, second thing that you need to remember here is the budget outlay. Okay, the budget outlay, since it's a huge number, it makes this mission very, very important. Even without the outlay, this is a very important mission. Rest of these pillars, you can just read about this whenever you are writing your answers on mains. So kind of, if we talk about structuring, and in the mains answer, if we talk about structuring, then these pillars could be one single point in your answers. So it is like an entire mains answers. It is like an entire mains answer. So you can use these points directly from here and you utilize it in your mains answer. Next news article, very, very, very important. The National Investment Policy for Urea. National Investment Policy for Urea for Atmanirbhar Bharat. Okay. So very important news article. What it is? So macroeconomic investment policy, which is aimed at reviving and expanding the domestic natural gas-based urea manufacturing, successor to the new investment policy of 2012, whose window expired in 2019. So this is why a new policy for urea production, and not only urea production, the idea is from natural gas based urea manufacturing. This is the entire idea. Now the objective is to add 10 million tons of fresh indigenous urea production capacity by supporting 8 to 9 natural gas based fertilizer plants. Okay, so you can remember this objective. You have to remember this one. First thing that you have to remember is the objective. How much is the targeted objective of production of fresh urea, which is adding 10 million tons further. Transparent costing. So explicit separation of fixed as well as variable cost in subsidy calculations, which will eliminate or at least reduce the administrative inefficiencies and improve the transparency. Okay, so transparent, the costing will become very transparent. How you are going to separate the fixed cost and the variable cost. Okay, and then providing subsidy based on that. So assured rate of equity band. So government backed return, rate it's a return on equity band of 12% floor to 16% ceiling, guaranteeing high investment certainty for the project developers. Forex risk mitigation. This is an important point that you can use in means. Why? Because a lot of urea is imported. If we provide you certain figures around this, so domestic production of urea is somewhere around 25 million metric tons, somewhere around this, which is, I'm simply only talking about urea. So it is roughly around 25 million metric tons. I'm giving you a rough estimate, which is around 86% of total fertilizer produced in India. Produced in India. So majority of the fertilizer that is produced, 86%, 85% you can remember, that is urea only. Okay. And if we talk about consumption of total fertilizer, so total, one second. So urea comprises of 74% of total fertilizer consumption. So urea is the majority, and a 3/4 of the fertilizer which is consumed in India is urea. Okay, and 86% of the total fertilizer produced is urea. So, but still remember that India is not the leading consumer of fertilizer. India is the second leading consumer of urea. First is obviously China. First is China. So India is second leading consumer of of urea. Okay. India is also the second leading producer of fertilizer, urea fertilizer. India is the second leading producer of urea fertilizer. Okay, so first is your China. India is also the second in consumption of nitrogenous fertilizers, or nitrogenous fertilizer, which is urea. So 58%. And another fact that you have to remember is 52%, roughly 52% of total fertilizer imported is urea. Okay. So almost half of the fertilizer that we import comprises of urea. Another fact, urea is the most produced. So essentially, urea is the most produced in India and most produced fertilizer in India, roughly around 86%. Urea is the most consumed fertilizer in India, which is roughly around 74-75%, which is three-fourth. And despite such high production and consumption, India is the leading, and India is having, majority of the total fertilizer that is imported comprises of urea in India, because the amount of consumption in India is way higher as compared to the domestic production capacity. And that is why we import urea in a very high number, because the consumption is very high. So this is why, since now coming back to our discussions, 52% of the fertilizer is imported. And while we are importing this, what gets disrupted is the forex reserves. So you have to remember that point. So that we have already discussed. Now coming back to our next topic, which is river Gandak. Gandak River. So what you need to remember from the point of view of prelims is the origin, the course, and the hydrological features. So you can look in the map. This is the map of Gandak River. Okay. So also known as Gandaki or Sapt Gandaki or even Narayani, one of the largest left bank tributaries of the Ganga River. Now do mention in the comment section which is the largest tributary of Ganga River. Do mention it in the comment section. So if we talk about the context, so this river crossed the danger mark. Why this was in news? Because it crossed the danger mark by 2 centimeter in Bihar, following heavy rain in Nepal's catchment area. So whenever you have rainfall in this region, high amount of, so the impact will be witnessed in the lower riparian states or lower riparian nation. Here it is Bihar. Okay, Bihar gets heavily influenced, impacted. The consequences of high rainfall in Nepal, the consequence is witnessed in Bihar. Okay, so this was the news article. So it originates in Nubine Himal Glacier. Nubine Himal Glacier, Mustang region of Nepal. So it originates. Where does it originate? You have to remember. First thing that you have to remember is the origin. So it is not in Tibet, rather it is in Nepal. It is in Nepal, and particularly the Nubine Himal Glacier at an elevation of roughly around 6,200 meters near the Tibet border, but essentially in Nepal. In Nepal, it originates as Kali Gandak or Kali Gandaki, flows through deep gorges, becomes Narayani near Devghat before entering India near Trivedi. Okay. Course in India, it flows through West Champaran, Gopalganj, East Champaran, Muzaffarpur, Siwan, Saran, Vaishali, and joins Ganga at Hajipur. Okay. So this is the second thing that you have to remember, that where does it join Ganga? So this is in Hajipur. Okay, so this was the first thing and this is the second thing. All these districts are of Bihar. Okay. Key features, this you have to remember one key feature, which is the Kali Gandaki Gorge. So this is one of the world's deepest gorges, flanked by Dholagiri and Annapurna peaks. Okay, so this gorge is between Dhaulagiri mountain range and Annapurna peaks. So this is your homework. This is your mapping homework. You have to locate exactly where is Dhaulagiri and where is Annapurna. And this gorge is formed essentially between these two peaks, which is referred as your Kali Gandaki gorge. So this is your third thing that you have to remember, this gorge. So around this river. Okay. Moving forward, majority important discussions with regards to prelims have been discussed. Now with regards to main, uh, biodiversity corridor, it connects the Chitwan National Park, which is in Nepal, to Valmiki Tiger Reserve. Now this is your, it connects Chitwan National Park, which is in Nepal, to Valmiki Tiger Reserve. Very, very important. Even for prelims, this is important. Valmiki Tiger Reserve, where is it? It is in Bihar in India. Okay, so this supports transboundary movement of rhinos, your tigers, gores, leopards, a critical wildlife corridor for the conservation. Okay, so this is a very important biodiversity corridor, first thing. Okay, and in this, please do remember, if not Chitwan National Park, but at least you have to remember the Valmiki Tiger Reserve. Second is agricultural lifeline. So Valmiki Nagar Barrage Canal system channels the Gandak waters to support cultivation of these different crops like rice, wheat, pulses across large swathes of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, which is vital for regional food security. So that is another. You don't need to remember this barrage as such. GLOF. What is GLOF? Glacial Lake Outburst Flood. GLOF. So let's say you have a mountain, है You have a mountain, and at the edges on the mountain, let's say, because of certain deposits of stones, cobbles, pebbles, and mud, sand, silt, you have a barrier is created. Now, because of this barrier, when the glacier is melting, water will be stored. Okay, water will be stored around this glacier. Okay. Now, whenever due to any reason barrier, this barrier gets removed, let's say the water amount rises, so barrier is unable to sustain the load of water, so it will break. Or let's say heavy amount of rainfall happens, then also the amount of water in the lake that rises, and then again the barrier is unable to sustain that load, then it will break. Or let's say you have a tectonic activity that happened in that region, because of which the barrier became unstable and that broke, and due to which the entire water that was stored over here, that started moving down slope, leading to flash flash floods in downstream region. And one of the famous examples of GLOF is the Kedarnath disaster that happened. You can always mention this example, this case study. So Kedarnath was quite unique. So it was not just GLOF, it was also a heavy downpour of water, a heavy amount of rainfall happened, due to which it also led to your GLOF, which is Glacial Lake Outburst Flood. So upper basin contains moraine dammed glacial lake. So this barrier is what? This is your moraine dammed glacial lakes. Moraine Dam Glacial Lake, including Thulagi Lake, and posing a glacial lake outburst flood risk, a major hazard for downstream Bihar and Nepal communities. Okay, so as soon as the water starts rising around that barrier or the moraine dammed glacial lake, so this barrier is essentially like a dam, which is storing water and which is creating a threat, which is creating a vulnerability to all those people living in the downstream. What kind of risk? The GLOF risk, the glacial lake outburst flood. So Gandak's vast mega fan of deposited sediments has shaped the entire landscape of eastern Uttar Pradesh and northwestern Bihar over millennia, key for physical geography. Okay. So mega fan is created, And now we'll be coming to, I hope you are well aware of about this concept, alluvial fan. If you are not clear about what is alluvial fan, please do visit and revise your NCERT. And still, if you are unable to address what is alluvial fan, please do mention it in the comment section. I'll be taking up in the next session itself. Okay. I hope this session was useful for you. We took only few current affairs, but we addressed them in quite a depth based on what could be asked from the point of view of prelims, what could be asked from the point of view of mains, and how can you utilize this knowledge. You can put it on the paper while writing mains, and please do keep on writing mains answers, because essentially a lot of your questions in mains are framed and designed and curated from the current events that are happening. Okay. So my humble suggestion would be to keep a close link, a close uh, view on all the current events that are happening, because the question are always formed. A lot of questions are formed based on the current events. Okay. So I hope you liked today's discussion. Please do mention it in the comment section. Whatever are your doubts, we'll address them in the next session. Okay. Thank you.